Hey there again. It is Sunday, February 3rd, 2013, and just thought I'd make another quick video about what I encountered once I got home after this second surgery. So tomorrow will be 3 weeks since I had the second part of my surgery. The second part being where they removed my rectum. They pulled the end of my small intestine, that was my ostomy. They pulled that back into my abdomen, pulled it down into the anal canal, sewed it to the anal canal. They created the Jpouch, sewed it to the anal canal, and then pulled another part of my small intestine that's higher up out through the cut in my abdomen, the same cut that I had used back in September when they removed my colon, and gave me a new ostomy for what would have been 12 more weeks, getting down to 9 weeks left. As of tomorrow, I have 9 weeks left with the bag, with the ostomy. Can't believe how fast it's going, but glad that it's going. So I wrote some notes. I came home on Saturday. I had my surgery on the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th. So I believe it was the 19th of January when I came home. And as you've probably heard, and if you haven't heard, this surgery, if you have 3 different surgeries instead of 2, is the roughest of the 3. And I had told you in my previous video, during my hospital stay, one of the things I encountered was staying hydrated this time. Last time I didn't really seem to have an issue with staying hydrated because my ostomy was at the end of my small intestine. My food seemed to stay in me longer. I still had to watch how I drank, but not as much as I've noticed now. I really need to be very conscious of to make sure I'm eating something before I drink. So anyways, I came home on Saturday, and I remember this time when I left the hospital, I actually let them push me down to the exit in the wheelchair. The first time I walked out of my room carrying a bag, it was a light bag, and walked to the parking structure after my first surgery. This time, like I said, I let them wheel me out. And I remember thinking I was a little bit anxious about leaving, just thinking, God, if something happens at home and I'm out of the whole medical setting, you know, I have to get all the way back down here. I live about half hour, closer to 45 minutes from my house to the University of Chicago Hospital, and I don't have a car, so I'd have to take a taxi, you know, once I was alone. So anyways, those thoughts were going through my head. But then, you know, that kind of passed. My partner was there to go home with me, and I remember on the way home, keep in mind they had just taken the catheter out maybe 5 hours before, and I had peed at the hospital. But I tried to drink a lot of water before I left to keep me hydrated, and halfway home I noticed I had a really urgent sensation to go to the bathroom, which I thought was good because I know after the surgery there can be problems with the bladder nerve, as I had talked about before. So I thought, well, it's good to have that sensation and need to pee, which is good. I'm like, okay, that's a good sign I'm staying hydrated. So I was able to make it home, got home, peed, which felt good to finally get rid of that. But I also noticed the sensation to urinate it's different. It's much better now, but it's still there a little bit. There's like a tingling or something. It's much more intensified, I guess I would say. It's not painful, it's not uncomfortable, but I just know that it's different since the surgery, which I'm assuming will continue to go away as things continue to heal. And so that was the rest of Saturday, and I remember when I got home, I just broke down, literally crying and stuff, because I was just glad that the second surgery was over. I almost had a full week under my belt. I was just glad to be home. And then Sunday, I noticed still I was very emotional, and my head was just racing. Normally, because I realized I had major surgery, normally I could come home and just kind of veg in front of the TV or read some, you know, non-mentally work magazines, you know, just something to get your mind out of stuff. And I was having trouble even doing that because my mind was just racing on those feelings in my bladder and you know, the dehydration once my partner left. How was it going to make sure I stayed hydrated? Because I was nauseated and still didn't have much of an appetite, and I knew I needed to eat to drink. It's the middle of winter, so the days aren't very long right now. It's cold outside, so you can't just get out and go take a walk as easily as you could when the weather's nicer. But anyways, went to bed that night and things were okay. Sunday, again, woke up, just that feeling of uneasiness. Not really sure why. And then probably about noon on Sunday, I went to go to the bathroom to pee, and I sat down on the toilet actually, and just a ton of fluid came out my backside, came out my butt. There was blood and water, and just it kind of freaked me out because it seemed like a lot. And then I realized, okay, the blood was darker, so to me that probably meant, okay, it was post-surgical blood, and they had created the Jpouch. And I had told you earlier on in the other video, I did have packing up in my buttock area because they did do work up through the anus as well as through the front to hand sew the pouch together and everything. So I didn't get too worried about it, although it was a little disconcerting. And then just add that to the rest of my mental issues. Still not much of an appetite, still a little nauseated, still difficult to try and stay hydrated. And I probably passed fluid 8 or 9 times that day. Each time seemed to get a little bit less and a little bit more clear. But by the evening I was a little bit concerned. Because I don't know that anyone specifically told me that there was going to be that much passing of fluid. I was thinking a little bit of leakage or wetness, maybe some mucus. I wasn't expecting all of that. So by that evening, Sunday evening, I did page the resident on call at the university. Called me back right away within like 2 or 3 minutes. Kind of talked me down off that. Said yes, that's normal. It's post-surgical. And he said he would only be concerned if it continued to last maybe 5 to 7 days after it started. So that did make me feel better in regards to that. Then went to bed that night, got up once, I think to empty the bag and pee, went back to bed, got up again, and I have radiator heat, so sometimes you can't control it at all. So sometimes it gets a little warm in here, and sometimes I'll sweat in bed just a little bit. So I got out of bed and I went into the bathroom, and I noticed my underwear were damp. So I reached around back and it seemed really wet. And then I turned on the light in the bathroom and looked in the mirror, and my underwear were just soaked. In a little bit of pinkish fluid. It looked like it had turned my underwear a little bit pinkish. And water. And so then I kind of started freaking out, and then came into the bedroom, turned on the light, lifted the sheets, and it was all over the sheets. It had gotten on the sheet that you cover with, had gotten on my comforter cover. So then of course I broke down because I hadn't had an issue like this. I was not expecting all of this, and my partner just talked me through it. Because we had planned for this way back before I started this whole process in September. I had bought a vinyl mattress cover, so he's like, we'll just take the sheets, put them in a bag, we'll deal with them in the morning. And then I forgot I had put a Chuck's pad, one of those pads that they use in the hospital in your bed. I had put one of those under the sheet over the vinyl mattress pad, kind of right where my abdomen and lower trunk would be, my hips, my buttocks. And so that caught most of it. So we just had to do a little bit of wiping on the vinyl mattress cover, put a new pad down, put new sheets on, changed underwear, cleaned up, and went back to bed. And so the next day I just got through and washed all that stuff, and made me really glad that I did buy that vinyl mattress cover. So that was a little freaky. So obviously now we're into Monday morning. Still, mind is just racing. Very bad, not so good mental place where I was at. I was actually nervous to go to sleep My partner was supposed to go home on Monday, and because this is what we did last time, I didn't expect that mentally there was going to be this issue, and with the hydration. But I got real nervous about going to sleep by myself, worried that because I was already dehydrated, and if I'm sleeping, I'm definitely not hydrating, and was concerned if something happened to me in my sleep, no one was there, kind of thing. And my rational mind just wasn't able to walk me to the next step of that's not going to happen, that's fine. So actually Monday, I called my ostomy nurse, who has been phenomenal through this whole process. I'm actually sorry that I'll be seeing her go after my next procedure. I will no longer have an ostomy, so I won't need her anymore from a medical aspect. But she talked me down. She said all of this the mental issues that you're having sounds like it's all related to your dehydration. So she said if you're not hungry and you're nauseated, just keep fluid by your bed, by your desk, by your couch, wherever you are. Keep a glass of fluid around. And she said, and just do small sips, enough to wet your mouth and swallow it, not big gulps. And as the hydration starts to return, your appetite will come back and things will progress. She said, buy some popsicles if you want to, but we got to keep, more water in you, or more fluids, excuse me. So she did talk me down off that. I also called the surgical nurse who wasn't in, the surgeon's nurse, who wasn't in that day. But her assistant got back to me, and I had asked her about the passing of the fluid and stuff out my rear end, and she said yes, that was normal, but she was going to have the surgeon's nurse call me Tuesday. So Tuesday, my ostomy nurse called to check on me again, and things were slightly getting better Tuesday. And the surgeon's nurse called me back on Tuesday. And the ostomy nurse, had also said, why don't you start some Imodium? So with patients that have the second surgery, because your ostomy is farther up in the small intestine, it can be even harder for you to keep your fluids in and keep to slow down the motility. Things tend to move faster, and so you do tend to lose more fluids. So it's very common that people use Imodium, which is an antidiarrheal, but what it does is it decreases the motility in your gut. So it slows everything down and allows your body to absorb more water throughout things. And I guess you can take up to 8 or 12 of these capsules a day. So my ostomy nurse on Monday had mentioned that, so I had gotten some, and things started to change a little bit. But on Tuesday, when I talked to the surgeon's nurse, she said, yes, take one at least 4 times a day, one before each big meal and one before bed. See how you do. You can go up to 2 at each time if you want to. So you'd be taking 8 if you need to, but just start with 1 and see how things go. And so I got some of that and started that. And then I forgot to even mention to the surgeon's nurse about my whole mental state, everything. So I called back, and she called me back, and she said, what's going on with your mental state? And so I told her everything that's going on, and she said, you just need to stop thinking about it. She said, you're very involved in it. And she's right. I've been measuring my urine output, my ostomy output. You're paying attention to how often you're going, how much you're going, what it looks like. Is the urine clear or dark? Am I eating? Am I drinking? And she just said, stop thinking about it. Just do some other things. And then after I got off the phone with her, I was like, you know what? She's right. So I was feeling a little antsy, so I just took my iPod and went out for a walk. It was freezing cold out, but it was just a quick 10-minute walk. But it was enough to clear my head. I got my mail, I came back, started looking through my mail, got tired, fell asleep, took a nap. So by Wednesday, this had been about 24 hours on the Imodium, things really started improving that Wednesday. So that was about a week and a half after, and that's really when I noticed the big changes. And my partner had changed his old schedule, so he ended up staying actually 2 full weeks. And then my mom had planned to come in when he left, and so she had come in for a couple days. So that was really nice, just to have someone here for that. I did change my bag on the Sunday I got back, the day after I got home. And I did notice a little bit of what I call folliculitis, or could have been yeast infection, which I kind of developed last time after the first surgery. So I just, kind of cleaned things and put a new bag on. That went better. I did notice the urination was getting a little bit better, and I knew I had a follow-up with my team by the next Tuesday. So this was Wednesday, a week and a half after my surgery, and the next Tuesday I had my 2-week follow-up to get my staples out, as well as the tubing that was holding the stoma out. So I wanted to make sure that when I went back I could report to her on how the bladder issues were going, as well as the sexual function issues. So without getting too specific, I made sure that everything related to the sexual function was working. And there were some issues as far as becoming aroused that took a little longer than usual, which is common, and this is more for people who are educating themselves on this procedure. That is a very common thing. The nerves have been traumatized and they're swelling and things, so that improves as time goes on. But I just wanted to make sure that things were working so I could report back to the nurse when I went back on Tuesday, because they want to know right away if things aren't, so they can kind of start a process. But things are good with both departments, urination and sexual function, so that's good. Mobility wise, moving around and stuff, this time I would almost say the first surgery seemed to be worse abdominal pain and discomfort wise. Initially the first few days this time were worse than the last one, but the last surgery the discomfort seemed to last longer. Still, when I roll from side to side, I had felt that things were kind of jiggling around in there, but that went away relatively quickly. The staples had started to become an irritant only because now the incision was healing very well. So things are becoming itchy. They were pulling when you turned and stood up and sat down. Pants or things, because the incision goes pretty low, so they would rub on the staples. So the staples were kind of becoming an issue. So by the next Tuesday, right before I went into for my 2-week follow-up, things had really started to progress nicely with the output. It was much more controlled. It was getting on the thicker side. I was taking Imodium still, and maybe emptying the bag 7 to 8 times within a 24-hour period, which isn't bad. The output from my backside had really decreased. Happened maybe 2 or 3 times a day, and it was just more mucousy water and not a ton of it. Again, all normal stuff. So that was pretty much my experience up to the 2 weeks. I was really surprised about the hydration and the whole mental outlook on things. That was the hardest part of this surgery to me. The physical, not a big deal the first couple days, but once you got through that, it was really the hydration thing. And I think because I had my first surgery and didn't have an issue with hydration, that's why this one was harder, because I had my last surgery to compare to and was frustrated with how this was going along with the hydration. So I'm glad to see that well behind me. And in the next video I'll talk about my 2-week check with the nurse, and then that will probably bring you up to date. Okay, remember you can always hit me up at my email, ucandpsc@gmail.com, if you have any specific questions related to anything. And one more thing, I also am glad that I had the first surgery, then the second, and then the third, because the first surgery allowed me to get used to the bag. So this time that wasn't even an issue. I couldn't imagine trying to get used to the bag and everything on top of the hydration issues and the other mental issues I was having. Trying to do that all together, and I know people that have, so kudos to them for being able to do this whole procedure in 2 steps instead of 3. So, okay, take care.